Hello, and welcome back to Porcupine Chronicles. We've explored stories about guilt and grace, freedom and madness, gods and ghosts. But today, we turn to a story that contains all of them at once, a story so vast that it seems to hold the entire human soul inside it. This is the story of a man who was broken by the law, remade by mercy, and hunted by the very justice that claimed to protect society. It is the story of sin and sanctity, despair and hope, chains and wings. It is Victor Hugo's Les Misérables. Our story begins not with a villain, but with a loaf of bread. Victor Hugo introduces us to Jean Valjean, a poor peasant who stole a single loaf to feed his sister's starving children. For that act, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But because of repeated escape attempts, his punishment stretches into 19 long years. By the time he's released, he's no longer a man, he is a number. Prisoner 24,601. He steps out into the world with nothing but hatred in his heart. Every door is closed to him. Every innkeeper drives him away. He carries a yellow passport that brands him a convict, a permanent mark of Cain sanctioned by the state. Hugo uses Valjean's suffering to indict an entire society. This isn't just one man's misfortune. It's a reflection of a civilization that punishes poverty as if it were a moral failure. The law, Hugo tells us, can create criminals just as easily as it condemns them. And then, one night, mercy arrives. Valjean finds shelter in the home of a humble country bishop, Monseigneur Benvenu. He expects cruelty, but receives kindness. The bishop feeds him, gives him wine, and offers him a warm bed. In the middle of the night, Valjean betrays this kindness. He steals the bishop's silverware and flees. He's caught and dragged back by the police. But instead of condemning him, the bishop performs one of the most shocking acts of grace in all of literature. He tells the police the silver was a gift, and that Valjean forgot to take the silver candlesticks as well. The police, bewildered, let him go. When they leave, the bishop turns to Valjean and says quietly, "Jean Valjean, my brother, you no longer belong to evil. I have bought your soul. I withdraw it from black thoughts, and I give it to God." This moment, a small, almost silent act, becomes the hinge upon which the entire novel turns. In the flash of candlelight, the machinery of the law is overthrown by the law of love. And for the first time in his life, Jean Valjean feels seen not as a beast, but as a man. From that moment on, Valjean disappears. He sheds his old name, builds a new identity, and dedicates himself to goodness. He becomes Monsieur Madeleine, a successful factory owner, and the beloved mayor of a small town. Under his guidance, the town prospers. He uses his wealth to help the poor, to create work, to ease suffering. But even saints live in fear. For Valjean, redemption isn't peace, it's constant vigilance. He is haunted by his past, by the yellow passport that could resurface at any moment, and by the shadow of the law. That shadow has a name: Inspector Javert. If Jean Valjean represents mercy, Javert represents order. He is the living embodiment of the system, cold, dutiful, unbending. Born in a prison to criminal parents, he grew up believing that morality and legality were the same thing. He has no imagination for mercy, no tolerance for ambiguity. To him, the world is divided between the righteous and the wicked. Valjean, no matter how virtuous, will always be a convict. When Javert discovers Madeleine's true identity, he pursues him relentlessly, not out of hatred, but out of principle. To Javert, forgiveness is chaos. The battle between them is a philosophical duel between grace and justice, between the human heart and the rulebook. But before this confrontation comes to a head, Hugo introduces another victim of society's cruelty: Fantine. Fantine is a young woman who falls in love, is abandoned, and left with a child, Cosette. To survive, she leaves her daughter with the Thénardiers, a pair of innkeepers who abuse and exploit her. Fantine works in Valjean's factory, hiding her secret. When the other women discover she has an illegitimate child, they demand her dismissal. Valjean, unaware, allows it. And in that single decision, a chain of suffering begins. Fantine sells her hair, her teeth, and finally her body to keep her child alive. By the time Valjean learns of her situation, it is too late. She is dying. Delirious, she dreams of seeing her little girl again. Valjean, kneeling beside her, promises to find and care for Cosette. When she dies, he whispers, "I will save your child from misery." From this moment on, Valjean's life has a single purpose: to become the father he was never allowed to be. He tracks Cosette to the Thénardier's inn. He finds her fetching water in the cold, her hands red and raw, carrying a bucket twice her size. She's only 8 years old. The image is unforgettable: a child in rags beneath the Christmas stars, struggling beneath the weight of cruelty. Valjean buys her freedom and takes her away. Together, they vanish into the night, father and daughter reborn. For a time, they live in peace, hidden in a quiet convent. But peace, in Les Misérables, is always temporary. The law still hunts him. Javert never sleeps. Years later, Paris itself becomes a character, a living, breathing organism of wealth and poverty, light and rot. Valjean and Cosette emerge into this world, just as revolution stirs in the air. Cosette, now a young woman, meets Marius Pontmercy, an idealistic student and revolutionary. They fall in love. But the world around them is collapsing into violence. In 1832, the students of Paris rise up, building barricades in the streets. Marius joins them, and Valjean, once again, walks into the storm. The barricade is one of the most powerful images in the book. It's a wall built of furniture and cobblestones, separating youth and idealism from the indifference of power. Valjean goes there not to fight for politics, but to protect Marius, the man his daughter loves. He carries no banner, no ideology, only love. In the chaos, Valjean finds the man who has hunted him for decades, Inspector Javert, now a prisoner of the revolutionaries. Valjean could kill him and be free forever. Instead, he cuts his ropes and lets him go. In that moment, grace triumphs over the law once again. Javert, faced with this impossible act of mercy, begins to unravel. His black and white universe collapses. If a criminal can be virtuous, then everything he believes becomes meaningless. He follows Valjean through the city, trying to reconcile what he has seen, but the contradiction is unbearable. Finally, he walks to the edge of a bridge, stares into the dark river below, and lets himself fall. Hugo describes it as the annihilation of a man who could not bend, only break. Javert dies not because Valjean defeated him, but because he could not comprehend the mercy that spared him. After the fall of the barricade, Valjean rescues the wounded Marius, carrying him on his back through the sewers of Paris, a hellish, symbolic journey through the underworld. Hugo writes that the sewers are the conscience of the city. All the filth of society flows there, and so must Valjean, the redeemed sinner. When he emerges, he is drenched, exhausted, and purified once more. Marius recovers and marries Cosette. Valjean, believing his presence will taint their happiness, confesses his criminal past to Marius, who, misunderstanding his sacrifice, distances himself. Valjean returns to his lonely room, sitting beside the silver candlesticks the bishop gave him so long ago. Their flames burn low, just as his life does. In his final moments, Cosette and Marius rush to his side, realizing too late the depth of his goodness. Valjean smiles. He whispers, "To love another person is to see the face of God," and then he is gone. Les Misérables is more than a novel, it's a cathedral of human emotion. Hugo called it a progress from evil to good, from injustice to justice. It demands that we look upon the world's suffering not with disgust, but with compassion. The book's title, The Miserable Ones, refers not just to beggars and convicts, but to everyone who has ever suffered, failed, or yearned for redemption. In Hugo's universe, we are all Les Miserables, but we are also potentially beings capable of transformation, forgiveness, and grace. The bishop's gift of silver wasn't a transaction, it was a spark. And that spark became a torch that lit the rest of Valjean's life. Mercy, Hugo suggests, is not weakness. It is the highest form of justice, the justice that restores rather than punishes. It is the refusal to let darkness have the final word. Hugo was writing a revolution of the heart. The true rebellion is not against kings or policemen, but against the cold indifference that lets suffering persist. When Les Miserables was published, it was attacked for being sentimental. But readers recognized the truth beneath its melodrama. Because the world still punishes the hungry, still condemns the desperate, and still forgets the poor. And because, deep down, every one of us still hopes to be forgiven. Les Miserables endures because it tells us that even in the darkest alley, a single candle can change everything. That a thief can become a saint, that mercy can be stronger than law, that love, once kindled, can survive death itself. So maybe the title doesn't just mean the miserable ones. Maybe it means the redeemable ones. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and as always, be well. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing.